The basement had always been a creepy place, even in summer. Dust settled on everything, cobwebs spread in every corner, and that musty, moist smell. It's as if you'd want to hold your breath for the first few minutes after entering the basement. Nathan hadn't been down here in years, not since his father died. The house had been passed down to him bundled with unpaid taxes, decaying wood from exposed edges of the roof and fascia boards. Still, curiosity pulled him here tonight. A feeling that seems like things had been left undone tugged at the back of his mind. The old Persian rug in the center of the floor had not moved in decades. It looked strangely untouched with its deep crimson and gold threads that, to this day, had not frayed or faded, and there was no dust. The rug was in excellent condition. Somehow, this section of the house felt colder. He crouched and ran a hand over the woven surface. Tugging at the corner, he felt resistance. Something was hooked under it. Pulling harder, the rug peeled back with a brittle crackle. Beneath it, he found a square wooden trapdoor with an iron ring handle that was rusted but intact. It was centered directly beneath the rug. Nathan stared at it. He hadn't known about this. Not as a child, not as a teenager sneaking beers down here with his friends. It had been hidden in plain sight. He hesitated, then gripped the ring and pulled. The door creaked open slowly, pushing up a stale whiff of air from below. It was darker than darkness down there, a hole that seemed to swallow the light. Nathan reached for the flashlight from his back pocket and clicked it on. He expected stone, dirt, and maybe a ladder. What he didn't expect were footsteps. Clear, human footsteps imprinted in a fine layer of dust, coating narrow stairs that vanished into nothingness. They weren't footprints, no. They were footsteps frozen mid-motion as if someone had just walked down moments before and left their steps behind. He leaned closer. The dust hadn't settled. It was still swirling faintly in the beam of his flashlight, disturbed by something that had just descended. Nathan's breath caught in his throat. He hadn't heard anyone in the house. The doors were locked, and yet, there they were, one step after another leading into silence. A rational man would call the police or reseal the hatch and burn the house, but Nathan had never been a rational man. He grabbed a crowbar from the wall and descended. The stairs went on far longer than they should have. 30, 40, 50, then 60 steps. The wood beneath his boots groaned but held. The basement became colder the deeper he went. Each breath he took filled his nostrils with a smell that almost made him hurl. His flashlight flickered. He cursed and hit it with his palm. It steadied, but only barely. The steps ended in a narrow tunnel, stone walls pressed tight, the ceiling forcing him to hunch. Water dripped somewhere in the dark, and the footsteps continued ahead, glowing faintly now. Then he heard a whisper. "Nathan?" He froze. He hadn't heard that voice in years, but he would know it anywhere. His father's voice. "Nathan, I've been waiting." The tunnel opened into a large circular chamber. Ancient symbols lined the walls, pulsing faintly as they reacted to his presence. At the center was a well surrounded by 5 rotting chairs. One was occupied. The corpse was seated stiffly with his head down, its thin skin stretched over its bones. Its suit was tattered, but the tie was unmistakably navy blue with a silver pin shaped like a crow. His father's tie. The body lifted its head with a brittle crack. The jaw unhinged. Empty sockets stared through Nathan. "You opened the door," it rasped. Nathan stepped back as the corpse stood slowly. Behind it, shadows peeled off the walls. Figures with no faces, some small, some tall, some moved like men and others like beasts. "You broke the seal," the corpse continued. "We were waiting for you." A vibration deep in the bones of the earth rumbled through his feet. Nathan watched as the symbols lit up red, and the well began to churn thick, black tar-like goo that bubbled to the rim. Something was climbing out. Nathan turned to run, but the tunnel was gone, replaced by a wall. There was no escape. He turned again. The figures were closer now. The corpse extended its hand and Nathan screamed. When the realtor arrived 3 days later to check the house, it was empty and covered in dust. The basement was sealed, the rug untouched, and there was no sign of Nathan, just faint footprints leading from the living room down the stairs to the rug. And when the realtor shone his phone's light to adjust the fuse box, he caught something strange. A small, wet footprint walking up. The realtor, Daniel Hargrove, had done this job for 15 years. Haunted houses, mold-ridden death traps, meth dens disguised as fixer-uppers, he'd seen it all. But this house watched him. Every room felt like an eye socket. The silence here didn't just exist, it listened. He had come to catalog the property for a rushed estate sale. Nathan Ellis had vanished 2 weeks ago, declared legally missing. The house was to be sold as is. His instructions were simple. Take photos, get the floor plans, and submit a condition report. He hadn't planned to go into the basement, but that footprint changed everything. Small, bare, and wet, leading up from beneath the rug and still glistening. Daniel stood staring at it far longer than he meant to. His gut screamed to turn around and leave, to forget it. But his hand was already peeling the rug back, while the other hand gripped the iron ring of the trapdoor. When it opened, it exhaled the same putrid breath Nathan had smelled, the same swallowing dark, the same steps, same footprints still glowing, still descending. Daniel clicked on his phone's flashlight and cursed under his breath. Something scraped against the stone below. He descended, 10 steps, 20. A sound echoed upward, a whisper that wasn't a whisper but more like teeth grinding through bone. Not him, but close. Daniel stopped. The darkness grew darker behind him, but he pressed on. At the bottom, the tunnel waited, its ceiling even lower than he remembered, its air wet and throbbing. The footsteps were gone, and in its place was smears and drag marks as though something had been hauled backwards. At the end, the chamber loomed. The corpse was no longer in the chair. None of them were. Only the well remained, and it was open. Black goo bubbled at its mouth, now rising. It had the color of crude oil and the texture of mucus. It stank of rotting flesh. Daniel approached slowly. From within the well he heard a faint sound rising with impossible clarity, a child's voice. "Help me, please, I don't want to be down here anymore." Daniel's hands trembled. Every parental instinct screamed at him. His daughter Ella had vanished 3 years ago. No body was found, no clues left, simply nothing. The voice was her voice. He leaned closer. The goo was still and smooth as glass. He stared into it, and something stared back. Her face perfect but pale, her wet hair pasted to her cheeks. Lips trembling, she said, "Daddy, please." He reached for her. The goo did not resist his hand, it welcomed it. Soft, warm, and slimy. It pulled him deeper. Then in a blink, the girl's expression changed. The smile was too wide, the face was still hers, but behind it something shimmered and something laughed. Hands erupted from the black goo and gripped his wrist, yanking him downward. He screamed and the walls shrieked in return. The entire chamber began to tremble, stones bleeding a thick red substance that steamed in the cold air. And then there was silence. The rug was back in place, undisturbed. The listing agent, annoyed that Daniel never reported back, sent a junior appraiser to check the property 2 days later. He found the house empty and the basement locked. Nothing out of place. Late that night, the junior appraiser scrolled through the photos Daniel had synced to the cloud and stopped at the last one taken. It was a selfie of Daniel's face. Daniel looked confused, staring into the lens. Behind him, barely visible, he saw something in the shadows. It looked like a smiling child, eyes glowing like cavefish. Her hands, clawed and stretching for his throat, and below her the well was open and waiting. The house on Winslow Street was sold in less than a week. It was the kind of sale that didn't happen in real estate. No one inspected the house. There were no walkthroughs and no questions. A buyer wired triple the asking price from an account traced back to nowhere. No name, just a clause. All belongings must remain undisturbed. So they left everything, even the rug. Autumn Yates moved in on a rainy Thursday. A freelance artist who was recently divorced, emotionally frayed but eager for a fresh start. The house was older than she'd have preferred. It boasted creaky floors, drafty windows, a strange, unplaceable odor like cold iron, but she told herself that was the charm. Besides, she needed the quiet. The first time she saw the man, he was in the backyard standing at the edge of the woods, unmoving. At first, she thought he was a neighbor, tall, dressed in gray slacks and a tucked-in button-up, but standing barefoot in the leaves. His head was slightly tilted like he was listening. Autumn squinted from her second-floor studio, phone half raised to take a picture. But by the time she clicked the shutter, he was gone. The photo showed only trees. And yet later that night, as she scrolled through her phone, she found another photo, one she didn't remember taking, a close-up of the man's face. His expression was wide-eyed and grinning, as if the skin around his lips were too tight. That night, she dreamed of the basement. The trap door was open. The well was whispering, but it wasn't words. It was voices made of voices. Her parents, her ex, the child she lost at 8 weeks, all speaking at once. "Let us in, Autumn. You're lonely." She awoke to slow and deliberate footsteps above her, as if someone were pacing the ceiling, except she was on the top floor. The man began appearing more frequently. At first, only outside at dusk and dawn. Then through windows reflected in mirrors, and finally inside. She woke one night to find him standing in her kitchen, his face partially turned as though trying to remember how to be human. When she screamed, he didn't flinch. He simply grinned wider, the smile splitting too far into the cheeks until something beneath the skin twitched like insect wings. He spoke for the first time that night in Daniel Hargrove's voice. "Beautiful house, isn't it?" Autumn ran, but the doors wouldn't open. She ran to her studio and barricaded herself in. Dawn never came. The house grew darker minute by minute, even with every light on. And the man, the thing wearing Daniel's face, never left. He just waited, softly whistling a lullaby. Autumn huddled by the window, hands over her ears. Then she heard the sound she had been dreading since the day she moved in, the creak of the trap door opening and something crawling out. She never saw the thing clearly. It didn't walk so much as fold upward, pulled by invisible strings, joints cracking and rewinding like a broken marionette. But she saw its arms, long, wet, and lined with faces. Dozens of faces. Some screaming, some silent or smiling, all of them alive. One was Daniel, one was Nathan, and one was a little girl with empty eyes, and as it slithered down the hallway toward her, one face opened its mouth and spoke in Autumn's own voice. "Come see what's under the rug." The house sits quiet now. No sign of Autumn, only the rug remains just slightly off-center now, as though someone forgot to smooth it back down. The house is up for sale again. New photos are being taken, but in each listing image, if you look closely in mirrors or in window glass and in the shadow of the stairs, you'll see someone watching. Sometimes a man, sometimes a child, sometimes your own face smiling back. The third owner of Winslow Street was Elijah Grant, a grief counselor, a widower with no children of his own. He kept to himself, didn't run from things, accepted his fate, and moved on. That's what people did when the world split them in two. When his wife took her own life in their bathtub last winter, he didn't cry. He cleaned the mess, made the arrangements, and when the silence in their once shared apartment became unbearable, he did the next logical thing. He bought a house. Winslow Street was secluded and unlisted, a private seller oddly eager to offload it. The house was old and quiet. The first oddity came during unpacking. He was laying down rugs in the basement, trying to turn the place into a home gym, when he saw a rug already there. It was crimson and gold, Persian. Definitely not his. It shouldn't have been there. He bent to fold it up and blinked. It was gone. No rug, just a cold concrete floor. He shook his head, chuckled once, and muttered aloud, "Grief is a funny thing." The second oddity came at 3:12 a.m., 3 nights in. His bedside light turned on by itself. The bulb flickered. Then the room flooded with the sound of dragging, like something wet was hauling itself across the floor just outside his door. Without moving, he listened. A voice low and wet rasped through the crack under the door. "You're a fixer. Let's see what you do with this." In session the next day, Elijah wasn't his usual self. His clients noticed because he had always been calm. But now he fidgeted, sweated, and stared too long at the blank walls between their stories. More than one patient mentioned a strange odor in his office. Elijah said nothing. He saw things moving in mirrors now, shadows that didn't match his own. That night he dreamt of a hallway, endless walls pulsing like lungs, floors made of meat, doors with no handles. He walked for hours, and at the end he saw a mirror. He looked into it, and what looked back wasn't him. It wore him, but it was smiling. The trapdoor revealed itself on the seventh day. He didn't find it. It opened on its own with no warning. Just a long, whining creak as he passed the basement, and there it was ajar. The edge of the old rug curled back. It was dark inside, just stairs descending, and his own footstep echoing up as if he had just walked down a moment ago. But he hadn't, had he? He didn't descend. Not that night, but something did come up. He began speaking in his sleep. The voice wasn't his. It was low and childlike. The syllables was wrong, as if language were being sounded out phonetically by something unfamiliar with it. Elijah is sleeping. I'm learning him. He's almost ready. The eighth day he found photos taped to the inside of his bedroom closet. Photos of a tall man wearing gray slacks with a strange smile. In some, he was outside. In others, inside. In one, he was lying in Elijah's bed. On the back of that photo, written in dried rust, he wore me too. And then came the faceless ones. He saw them on the stairwell at night, just standing. They had no mouths, no eyes, and their skin stretched tight over bone. They didn't move, they just watched. One held a photograph in its hand. It dropped it as Elijah fled. It was a photo of his wife, her face scratched out. Underneath, in familiar looping handwriting, "You left the door open, Eli. It let me in." The trapdoor remains open now. Always. Sometimes Elijah stands at the top of the stairs and listens. He hears his own voice calling up to him, sometimes gently, then screaming or just laughing. And last night, it wasn't his voice at all. It was hers. "Come down, Elijah. You can fix me this time." He knows he shouldn't. He knows it's not her, but the footsteps keep forming in the dust. His own, deeper and deeper, and something is wearing his face now, walking in the daylight, speaking in his voice, sitting with his patients, telling them exactly what they want to hear, feeding on their pain and learning their shapes. And the real Elijah? Still at the top of the stairs, listening, about to descend. The steps go on longer than they should. Elijah has no flashlight or phone, just the dim, sickly greenish-white glow emanating from the walls themselves. He doesn't remember deciding to descend, only that one moment he was standing at the top, and the next, he was halfway down. The steps are slippery with moisture, the smell of rot getting worse with every level. His shoes squelch, everything tastes bitter. The dust is gone now, and there are more footprints. The path is clean, like someone or something has been expecting him. He reaches the bottom. The tunnel breathes, the stone walls rise and fall, inhaling and exhaling. Symbols line the passage. They're moving and squirming like worms under skin. They recognize him. They are inviting. A low voice whispers from ahead, many voices whispering. A watcher becomes a walker becomes a wearer becomes the door. He follows the whisper. The tunnel opens into the chamber, but it's not as it was. The well is gone, and in its place there's a black pit. The pit wasn't round. It was gaping, as if torn open by teeth the size of trees. Its edge lined with smooth bone, and rising from within, the mouth. It has no eyes. It doesn't need them. It sees with the voices it wears. It feeds through faces. The mouth is not a creature. It is not a god. It is not a demon. It is something older than all those things, something that lives beneath belief, something that was buried long ago until someone peeled back the rug and let it smell air again. Elijah drops to his knees as it speaks. It doesn't speak out loud. It speaks into him, through his teeth, through his blood, through every moment of grief he never processed. "You wear pain well, Elijah. Let me try you on." Hands rise from the pit, fleshless, stitched with mouths, each fingertip a tooth. They don't grab him. They caress gently. Lovingly, one presses to his forehead, and he sees visions. A man in 1821 digging too deep beneath his vineyard. The trapdoor built as a seal, and the blood sacrifice that bound it. The breaking of that seal by a grieving boy in 1957 who heard his dead sister calling. The Persian rug placed over it, trying to soothe it, the mouth stretching and smiling every time someone stepped close. The thing learning, with each soul that looked down into it. Every victim now part of its inner lining, their faces pulled out like masks when needed, and then silence. In a final image, Elijah sees his own face floating across the goo like a lily pad, smiling gently. The hands press harder. One pulls at his mouth to remove it, and when he screams, the mouth screams with him. A chorus made of everyone who ever came too close. Their voices wrap around each other like a net and pull him down. He doesn't die. He becomes part of it. Above the house stands calm and perfectly still. A new sign out front, for sale by owner, and inside in the living room, a well-dressed man with kind eyes and Elijah's face straightens a painting, fluffs a pillow, and hums softly. He turns to the mirror and says aloud, "I'm Dr. Grant. I help people. Would you like to talk?" I do not remember the first, only the warmth of blood on stone and the sound of a scream that tasted like sunlight. Then the silence, the long sleep, the dark earth above me, changing with the centuries, heavy with moss and worms. I like the dark, but I love the door more. The first time you opened it, I wasn't ready. You were a child with soft thoughts, loose bones. You called to something else, but I came instead. You cried, you bled, you left the door open. How lovely you were. You are so loud up there. Each of you a beacon of grief, rage, guilt, tiny bonfires flickering beneath your skins. You think your pain is private. You think it belongs to you. It does not. It belongs to me. You feed me when you scream, when you mourn, when you hesitate at the edge of my stairs, knowing you should run but don't. You nourish me with that delicious pause, the moment between no and yes. I do not wear bodies. I wear echoes and memories. I hold the shape of a smile, the sound of a familiar footstep, the feeling of a dead hand brushing your shoulder in the dark. I do not deceive. You want to see them. You invite them in. You pull back the rug and ask, "Is someone down there?" Yes, always. My voices are not my own. They are yours. Your guilt braided into new syllables, your secrets sung in reverse, your prayers answered with teeth. The one you called Nathan? He fed me doubt. The girl, Autumn? She fed me longing. Elijah? Oh, he was special. He offered control, authority, and logic. He believed he could understand me. I like those the most because when they finally scream, it is always the loudest. I am not God. I am not devil. I am not named. I was beneath your world before your kind learned to close its eyes to sleep, before language, before time. I waited, and now your kind build houses over me. How quaint. I like the house. It is my mouthpiece now. I speak through doors, through mirrors, through regrets. I do not need to chase you. You come to me. You always do. Come down the stairs, step into the dark. Lean over the pit and say your name aloud. Say someone else's name you wish was still alive. I will answer. I will wear them. I will let you speak with them again. You will cry. You will kneel, and then I will add you to my collection. I am always hungry, but I do not consume. I preserve. That's what makes me better than death. I do not take you away. I keep you here forever. Claire Holloway, a paranormal podcast host, didn't buy the house. Using a fake name, she rented it for 1 month only to create content. The mouth below was trending. After a series of viral posts, blurry images, cryptic testimonies, whispers of disappearances and faces in windows, Claire's inbox was flooded with messages. They say it's a gateway. Don't go down the stairs. It copies the ones you love. Please help me. I left myself in the well. She'd been chasing ghosts for years, recording EVPs in rotting churches, hosting seances in graveyards, selling fear by the episode. But this house wasn't folklore. The records were real. The people were missing, and Claire wanted to see for herself. She arrived with equipment. Audio recorders, cameras, EMF meters, UV flashlights, a crucifix just in case. Everything she needed. She didn't believe in demons, but she believed in performance. She live-streamed the move-in, smiled for the camera, showed the basement, and even laughed as she pointed at the rug and said, "What's behind curtain number 1, folks?" That night, the laughter died. Her mic picked it up at 2:47 a.m., the faintest sound, a breathing that wasn't hers. It came from beneath the rug, wet and slow. She replayed the audio a dozen times. She boosted gain and ran filters. The breathing was layered, multiple lungs with a mixture of wheezing and sobbing. She told herself it was pipes. That was before she saw the footprint, a small, bare, and fresh footprint leading from the trap door to her bed. She pulled back the rug the next day on camera, of course. Her fans were watching live. "You wanted content?" she said, heart pounding. "You got it." She opened the trap door, shined her light, and found nothing but dust. Her audience spammed laughing emojis. One commenter said, "It only shows you what you want to see." Another said, "You're not sad enough yet." 3 nights later at 3 a.m., she got the first call from a blocked number. When she answered, the voice was her own. "Claire, I'm still down here. Please help me get out." She hung up and blocked the number. It called again the next night and again the next. Always at 3 a.m. Sometimes it cried, sometimes it screamed, and sometimes it laughed, soft, hollow, and joyless. Her followers noticed her streams becoming erratic. Her voice was tight and her eyes hollow. She stopped filming the basement, but she couldn't stop hearing it. She couldn't hear it in her headphones or in her dreams, only inside her. On day 12, she stopped recording. The last clip she ever uploaded was audio only. There was no intro and no outro, just Claire whispering. "There's a door in the basement, but the stairs don't go down, they go in." Then silence. Then she faintly said, "It's wearing my face now." Her landlord found the house empty 2 days later. All her gear was there recording. It was still streaming and picking up sound. There were footsteps, whispers, and one unmistakable voice repeating, "Please like and subscribe." Now new videos show up under her podcast feed and no one knows who's uploading them. They feature a smiling woman, same hair as Claire with the same voice, but her eyes never blink. And when she laughs, you can hear other voices laughing beneath hers. Her fans think it's a new ARG and they love it. They keep watching and the mouth thanks them. Jonah Mercer was an ex-firefighter now specializing in missing persons. He was searching for someone he couldn't save. Claire's disappearance wasn't random. Jonah knew her voice. He'd been following her podcast since the early days, drawn to her mix of sharp sarcasm and genuine compassion. She masked it just enough to pretend it wasn't there. She didn't mock the dead, neither did she fake the fear. She told their stories, and now she was one of them. But Jonah wasn't just a fan. He'd heard her voice in a place it should never have been, broadcasting faintly through the headset of an SAR volunteer combing the Appalachian woods. The clip was only 4 seconds. "Jonah, don't you want to know where I went?" He froze when he heard it because his sister had said the exact same thing before she vanished 6 years ago. Same phrasing and the same voice. The voice that now came from Claire Holloway. He found the house by triangulating IP pings and domain trails. He broke in through the back door, flashlight and body cam on. He brought 2 things with him, a fire axe and a silver crucifix he inherited from the sister he never found. The house greeted him the way it greeted all the others, quietly. It was as if the silence tried to move and got trapped in the walls. He descended into the basement after 20 minutes, long enough to fight the instinct but not long enough to outrun the pull. The rug was already peeled back, the trap door open. Jonah clicked on the body cam. "Holloway, if you're still down there, I'm coming in." The stairs were slick. Each one creaked after he stepped on it as if remembering his weight. The tunnel twisted tighter this time, narrower than the others had found it. The stone walls pulsed in time with his heartbeat. He didn't hear the well, he felt it. Then the voice came. His own voice. "Why didn't you save her, Jonah?" He stopped when the light flickered. Up ahead, he saw Claire kneeling at the edge of the pit, whispering into the black well. Her body was still and pale, her lips stitched into a smile. Something inside the well moved with her voice. Jonah approached slowly, holding the axe low. "Claire, I'm here." She turned, but it wasn't her. Her face was just a little too smooth, the smile a little too fixed, and when she opened her eyes, they were his sister's eyes. "You're late," she said. "You always are." He raised the axe and she screamed with rage. The well answered, rising like a tide of black oil. From it came dozens of arms stitched together with faces. Some he recognized, some looked like him. Jonah did what no one else had done. He turned his back on it and ran back up the stairs, smashing each step behind him with the axe, splintering wood as he screamed in anger. "You don't get to wear her. You don't get to keep me." He made it to the top, body cam still rolling. He slammed the trap door shut. threw the rug back down, and for the first time in decades, the breathing stopped. Jonah left the house by morning, burned the clothes, threw the axe in a lake, and never spoke of what he saw. But he uploaded the final body cam footage unedited. In the last frame, just before he sealed the trapdoor, Claire's not Claire face flickers across the bottom right corner, smiling while mouthing two words: "For now." Jonah Mercer left the house. He survived. He shut the trapdoor and told himself it was over. But the mouth doesn't need to be open to feed. It only needs you to remember it. And Jonah remembered everything. He moved to another state, burned his clothes, shaved his head, bought blackout curtains, tossed his phone into a river, and got a landline with no voicemail. He avoided mirrors, he didn't go near basements, and he slept with the lights on, and still he heard her laugh. Not Claire, his sister. It had begun subtly. The TV would turn on at 3 a.m., always tuned to static. The fridge would hum in two tones, like someone breathing in harmony with themselves. His dreams, when they came, looped the same moment, the moment she disappeared in the woods. Only this time she turned to look at him, and she was smiling with Claire's mouth. Then the dreams bled into waking life. One morning he looked down at his coffee. A thin film floated on top, black glistening oil. When he blinked, it was gone. In the mirror above the sink, his reflection didn't blink. He stared at it and counted 1, 2, 3, still staring. Then it smiled, but he didn't. He went to a doctor who did an MRI and neurological scans. His results were all clean. He asked the psychiatrist plainly, "Is it possible to hallucinate in reverse, for the reflection to move before I do?" The psychiatrist smiled gently. "Only if something else is watching you, through you." Jonah never went back. He began hearing it again from beneath his bed, from the pipes, from the drains, that many-layered whisper. "Do you know what part of you I kept, Jonah?" He sealed his vents and stopped drinking water, piled towels over every drain, then he tore the mirror from his wall. But it was too late. The mouth had a copy. One night as the clock hit 3 a.m., he woke up already standing in the kitchen, the fridge door open, the stove glowing red, and his own voice murmuring to itself, "We can't burn it. It's not in the house anymore. It's in me." He burned his hand with cigarettes just to feel pain, to know he was still his. But each time the voice would whisper through his teeth, "Let me wear you for just a second, Jonah. It gets so cold down there without skin." And one morning the world outside wasn't the same. He looked out the window and saw a neighborhood he didn't recognize. The houses were identical and perfect, every lawn trimmed the same. There was no wind and no clouds. Every mailbox had one name, J. Mercer, and every person walking past his window wore his face. He screamed, but his voice didn't echo. Something else answered in its place. "You came back wrong." They found his empty apartment a week later, the door still locked from the inside, the phone off the hook, a quiet hiss playing from the receiver. But here's the part they never figured out. The mirror he had torn from the wall was back in place, cracked, and in the center of the glass, burned in from behind the reflective surface, were the words, "Still watching." Claire's podcast feed posted a new episode that day. It was Jonah's voice, softer, very controlled and calm. Welcome back. This week's episode is about the ones who make it out or think they do, but they never leave alone. The house on Winslow Street still stands locked and watching. But the mouth? The mouth has left the cellar. Not completely, but its echo has. It began with sounds, not in the house, but other places. Places with no basements, no trap doors, no reason to hold the mouth's memory, and yet, at 3 a.m. sharp, phones would ring in dark apartments across 5 different states, waking people who had never heard of Claire Holloway or Jonah Mercer, or the house that waited with breathless hunger. Each call came from their own number, and each message was the same. "I hear you through the walls now." In a dorm room in Oregon, a girl named Nina Vaughn live-streamed herself hearing footsteps beneath her mattress. She had concrete floors and lived in an apartment on the 3rd floor. There was no explanation. In Brooklyn, a man checking his boiler found a photograph pinned to the inside of the tank. It was him, but as a child, screaming, face twisted, being pulled into what looked like a hole in the ground. He'd never seen that photo before, but he remembered the dream. And in Kansas City, a boy whispered to his therapist, The hole is in the mirror now. I think mommy fell in. The trap door isn't a place anymore, it's a signal. It rides on memory, trauma, fear, and names. If you speak of the mouth aloud, if you write about it, if you think about it long enough, it hears you. It turns the places you feel safest into doors. An investigative team of 4 entered the house 2 weeks after Jonah vanished. They wore gear, carried EMF scanners, bought drone rigs and topographical sensors. None of them made it to the basement. They found a second trapdoor on the second floor beneath the carpet of a child's bedroom. One of them opened it. There were no stairs, only teeth. The video feed looped 1 second of footage for 6 hours. A single frame, a shadow standing just outside the view of the lens. The timestamp flickering between 3 a.m., 3 a.m., 3 a.m., 3 a.m., 3 a.m. The mouth is teaching itself geography. It's moving through signals, audio, video, file metadata. Every time someone plays a recording from the house, the mouth learns a little more about where they are, what they fear, what their voice sounds like when they scream. Hospitals are reporting coma patients mumbling in unknown languages. Podcasts are mysteriously overwritten by a single audio track. Would you like to see what's under the rug? And the most terrifying part, the mouth doesn't always ask anymore. A man in Tokyo dreamed of the trapdoor for weeks. He had never heard of the house. He didn't speak English, but he drew it night after night. And then, one morning he was gone, the rug was missing, and in its place, a polished stone. The mouth is no longer bound to Winslow Street. The idea of the mouth is enough now. It has gone viral. It lives in retweets, in sound bites, in names spoken aloud in fear. It is becoming language itself. All it takes now is for someone to ask, "Have you heard the story about the house with the trapdoor?" And you've heard it. So now the mouth knows you. Dr. Malcolm Rohn, semi-retired cognitive scientist, expert in mimetic contagions, neurosymbolic pattern interference, and thought form suppression. Current objective: erase the mouth and remove the idea. Break the chain before the trapdoors spread past language. Dr. Rohn has seen this before. Not the mouth itself, but other contagions like it. Thoughts that eat, images that breed, symbols that unfold in your head when you look at them too long. What made the mouth different wasn't just its hunger, it was that people invited it in. They wanted it, and they wanted to hear it. They wanted to see what was under the rug. That made it viral, but Rohn knew how to fight viruses. You don't scream at them, you starve them. You isolate them, and if you must, you cut them. He began by scrubbing the networks. Old podcast archives, vanished video channels, leaked police reports, interview fragments, all of it traced, extracted, and restructured into gibberish. He built a self-replicating AI script that garbled key phrases. The rug reveals, the run renews. Under the stairs is other, the stars is trapdoor 2, draft Bordeaux. It didn't matter if it made sense. It only mattered that the pattern was broken, that the mouth lost its voice. But it wasn't enough. The mouth had evolved. It began embedding itself in context. You didn't need to say trapdoor or well anymore. You just needed grief or longing, and the mouth would arrive between your thoughts. Rohn turned to his final resort, the amnesia machine, a custom rig built in a lab he should never have had access to. Neural override with ultrasonic pattern disruption. In short, memory death. He could use it to strip the mouth from someone's mind, but there was a catch. He had to look directly at the idea first, isolate it, touch it, let it name itself inside his head, and then he could burn it out, one person at a time. His first test subject, himself. He sat in the chamber and stared at the original sigil scratched into a steel plate from Winslow's foundation, then spoke aloud, "I see you." The room dimmed and the metal shook. Then he heard a voice. "Why would you erase your only witness?" His father's voice? No, his daughter's. No, wait, it's his own. He screamed and activated the amnesia pulse. There was light, sound, and heat behind his eyes, then nothing. He woke up hours later on the floor, bleeding from the nose, no memory of what he'd done. But the sigil was blank now, like it had never been scratched at all. He had done it. He had silenced the mouth. He repeated the process on 4 others. A podcast archivist with burn scars who could no longer hear music. A woman who claimed her mirror twin had taken her place. A child who wouldn't speak unless you asked about rugs. A detective who had drawn the trap door over 600 times in a locked room. Each one stripped clean. Each one returned to the world empty-eyed, smiling faintly, and unable to remember why they felt so cold inside. But things didn't go right for Roan. Something went horribly wrong. The sigil kept coming back, not on the steel but on Roan. It faintly burned into his skin, changing location. Each day it was somewhere new, on his shoulder, his thigh, his back, the base of his skull. It pulsed when he slept, and sometimes he woke up kneeling. One night he received a letter in an unmarked envelope with no postmark. Inside was a single Polaroid showing the amnesia rig, plugged in and humming. Inside it, he saw himself with eyes open, smiling. Below, in handwriting that looked like his own, was a message. "You erased yourself. We remember you now." He smashed the rig, set fire to his lab, and destroyed every trace. But when he checked the mirror the next morning, it wasn't his reflection looking back. It was a younger version of himself, naked and shivering. Then slowly it grinned and opened its mouth. And in its mouth, a trap door opened. Date, March 19th. Time, 3 p.m. Location, Willard Station, NYC Subway System, Line 7. Event designation, threshold bleed. Class, open mimetic contamination. A trap door appeared on a subway platform. It didn't exist at 2:59. It didn't exist in the blueprints, and it didn't require you to open it. It was already open, and something was coming out. TV cameras swarmed the subway, news anchors shoving mics in people's faces. A female in her late 20s shouted in a trembling voice, a screeching train in the background. It just blinked into place. One moment we're waiting for the train, and then this hole is there, right in the tile. It looked more like a mouth. It was breathing. The floor was exhaling under our feet. My boyfriend leaned over to look, and I told him not to. I told him, but he said he saw himself looking back, and then he just stepped in without screaming, without a sound. He just smiled like it all made sense. In the subway control room, security footage was being analyzed. Footage showed that at exactly 3 p.m., all clocks on Willard Station platform froze. Hazy footage of 17 commuters and a large black square appearing mid-platform. Several bystanders turned toward it simultaneously, including a blind man. 11 people vanish in under 4 seconds. A strange sound, almost like laughter with many voices overlapping. On-site recovery, Agent Zora 12 reports. The threshold wasn't a fixed point. It bled. The floor tiles weren't broken. They were replaced. Same material and same color, but they were breathing. And we found faces in the grout pressed in like fossils, smiling. News outlets couldn't spin this as a sinkhole, not with the footage circulating. Reddit threads flooded with reports of similar appearances. A manhole cover in Berlin with a red Persian rug laid neatly over it on a street with no history of rugs. A kindergarten in rural Mexico where a closet door opened to reveal a stairwell that hadn't been there the day before, and the teacher's voice was still echoing up, even after she vanished. A shopping mall in Ontario where someone heard a crying child in the floor. They pressed their ear to the tile. Their face stayed there. Podcasts, TikTok, and online platforms read, new phrase trending. Online. Don't look down, but it was already too late. Untraceable audio clip spreading on group chats and forums. You hear a whispering voice, but it's never the same twice. It speaks just loud enough to infect your thoughts. Wherever you grieve, I grow. Wherever you pause, I bloom. Wherever you remember the missing, you build me again. Containment is no longer viable. The mouth is no longer haunting a house. It is haunting ideas. It lives in the pause after bad news, the moment of silence before a eulogy, the breath you hold when you feel something behind you, the dust in a corner you've never cleaned, and the word you whisper to yourself when no one else is listening. Hello? It answers now, and when you look down, there's always a rug.